Hello, Jerry here with Season 4, Episode 37 of Ask Jerry Tachoir. If you'd like to ask me a question, you have two ways of doing it. You can either send a little memo down at the bottom of this video, or best way to do it is to go to my website, which is www.tachoir.com. That's Tachoir.com. And in the upper right-hand corner is a little contacts tab. If you click on that, you can fill out the information, ask your question, and we'll do one of these videos. We also ask that you please subscribe to this channel. It definitely helps out with the YouTube algorithm somehow, and I appreciate that. And that way we can let you know when there's another video out. Today's video question comes from Lawrence in Amsterdam. Hello, Jerry. I have been so satisfied watching and learning from your videos. Thanks for keeping me motivated. Your recorded vibe sound is by far the best I've ever heard. The sound is very clear, smooth, and warm. No clanky vibe sound here. What are you doing to get such an amazing recorded vibe sound? I've tried everything and nothing sounds like your sound. Please advise, Lawrence in Amsterdam. I talked about recording once before in another video. I forget which one it is. But I do want to talk a little bit more about specifically tone. I'm a big stickler for getting a sound, getting a tone. And I tell all my musicians in my band, I said, work on your sound, your voice of your instrument, and get something that you could use consistently, whether it's in an indoor concert or outdoor stage for a festival or something like that, or a major concert hall, whatever, something that's consistent and becomes your voice. And this is something that I have worked on all my life. I really like my specific vibe sound to be warm and smooth, and like you said, not a clanky vibe. I hate that sound where it's really hard mallets and it just sounds real clanky, metallic, and to me that's just offensive. I want a smooth, nice sound. And so let's talk about the steps to get that kind of tone that you want on your instrument. The first thing would be, obviously, is to find an instrument that you love. An instrument that speaks to you, an instrument that you dig the sound of, in this case, the sound of the vibraphone bars, the sound of the frame, the fact that it doesn't rattle and shake and make noises. Find your instrument. And that's crucial, because if you're playing an instrument that you're not comfortable with, it's going to affect everything about your performance, including your sound and your tone. So find an instrument, first of all, that you really dig, you really love, and that's speaking to you. In this case, I am in love with this Bergerault extended range 3.5 octave vibraphone. This is my voice. I've been after this instrument for as long as I've been playing. Finally, I got a finished instrument, and just those extra 5 notes on the C has opened it up for me and just made a world of. So this is the instrument that I have. Now, obviously, anybody could take my instrument and come over and play it. And why is my sound distinct? Well, the next step in the process is obviously your choice of mallets. In my case, I'm very lucky in that I have the Jerry Tachoir JT23 signature mallet by Innovative Percussion. And I worked with them for about a year on developing this specific mallet. We went back and forth for a year of prototypes. Every week a UPS truck would show up with a box of mallets, and they would have different markings and numbers on them. I'd go down, I'd try them, and I'd write back, I said, this one's too hard, this one's too soft, this one's too whatever. And that went back and forth for a year, until one day the UPS guy showed up, and I opened up the box of mallets, and I played them, and I said, there it is. That is my sound. So, your mallet. You gotta find a mallet that you dig. Both the sound, the feel, it's got to be like straight. I love rattan mallets. They give me the flex. I can pop with them, and they just work very well. So this mallet, the JT23 by Innovative, I highly recommend. It's not an aggressive mallet by any means, and a lot of people will say, well, I play outside and I need to sound loud. and they grab for their brittle, nasty mallets, and it just, all it does is make an ugly sound somewhat louder. So my thing is, find a mallet that you dig, that you're going to play acoustically and is your sound and your tone, and then get some nice microphones. Find some nice microphones that's going to enhance your vibe sound and make it project so that you don't have to go for those goofy hard mallets. It's just, they sound horrible. I mean, I really hate, when I hear a vibes player playing with really aggressive, loud mallets, I turn it off immediately. I can't stand the sound of that clanky metal. So all right, you got your instrument. Now you got your mallets. What's the next step? Okay, so when you go into a recording studio is a controlled environment. It's both acoustically controlled, and also you have, obviously in this case, great microphones. I'm using these Audio-Technica condenser microphones, and then it goes into the mixing console and into whatever format you're recording it in. So there is a step in a process where the sound going into the actual, let's say, tape machine in this case, but in the digital world it's some kind of a computer. There is an alteration of the sound. So you got to find microphones that try to give you as limited change in the tone of your instrument as possible. And it's just a matter of going somewhere where they have a huge selections of microphones and trying a bunch of different microphones. Just set them up and say, A/B them, I'll play this one, I'll play this one, try this microphone, and then listen to them in a really controlled environment and see which one of those microphones gives you the sound that you hope to hear acoustically. And then that becomes your microphones that you're going to use in a recording studio. So a controlled environment gives you that option to get your tone and get your voice as easy as possible out there, and it just works. Now, what happens when you go out into the real world? Well, if you're in a small room, you can play acoustically, obviously, and your mallets and your instrument is all you have to really deal with. Most of the time, if you're playing with a band, you're going to have to be amplified to some degree. So, you're going to use microphones, and you can use the same microphones, though these are very expensive, to be taking out onto the road. So you might want to find another microphone that's not as expensive as these, that'll give you somewhat of the sound that you're expecting to hear acoustically, in other words, your voice. So find those microphones and use them consistently. A lot of my friends said, well, Jerry, I've got these pickups, and I have all the pickups. I've tried them all, everything from the original Oliver pickup that Musser put out 50 years ago that were horrible, to the Ray Ayotte sensor system. He's a friend in Canada who made at that time it was one of the best, and now they have the K&K pickup system, which of all the three is probably the one that works, but it alters the sound of your voice. It's not what you want to be your voice. It's an altered thing. But in rare occasions, when you're out there and you're really having to crank to be heard, I guess that's the compromise that you have to make. You have to find something that's going to allow it. I mean, I find microphones seem to work very well for me, but they say, when you're having a microphone, everything behind you, whether it's the drummer or the bass player or whatever, is also being picked up. So you have to control the microphones and try to get them, I guess, as close as possible so that you can continue playing your instrument without actually hitting them. So again, I'm a proponent and an advocate of finding your voice on your instrument. I want to know, when you hear this sound, that's Jerry Tachoir playing. I recognize that sound. And same with my instrumentalists in my band. I want my bass player to find something that's a consistent sound and with some nice compression and everything else, so you don't have those like loud peaks and like real soft sections. Something that's consistent. And that becomes your voice. And that's what we're all as musicians struggling for, is to find our voice on our instrument and keep it as consistent as possible. Eventually, your tastes may change. You may say, well, I want it to be a little bit different. And then you got to backtrack and say, okay, well, the instrument's not going to change. I keep my instrument. Maybe I'll have to find different mallets that'll give me a different voice that I'm looking for. So anyway, that's basically all I have to offer. And I work really hard to get a good sound. In the studio, when I come to mix, again, I know what my acoustic vibe sounds like. So if the tape machine, or in this case the digital machine, has altered it somewhat, I know how to EQ it to get back to what I expect it to sound like acoustically. And then, obviously, depending on the tune, I might add a little bit of reverb to give it just a nice kind of a sound like in a performance hall or something. Just a nice little touch of reverb. And occasionally, I even use a very, very slight touch of, I call it the Tachoir chorus. I have it kind of tuned in. It's a nice stereo chorus effect, and it just kind of gives it a really nice, airier sound. And that's all I do to get my sound. And clarity of your instrument. You've got to make sure that your technique is flawless. You've got to make sure that when you're dampening cleanly and nothing is extraneous ringing and things like that. So that's the stuff you have to work on as an instrumentalist. But in terms of the recording process, it's actually fairly simple. Your instrument, your mallets, your mics, and going on to the machine and recording it and then trying to get your voice on your instrument. So keep working at it, and I think you'll figure it out eventually and get a good sound. I appreciate your question. Thank you so much. And please ask me some questions, and perhaps we'll do one of these videos. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.